Hello, everyone, and it's so lovely to see you all here again. And I have the most wonderful and interesting guest today. He's made me laugh already. I'd like you to meet Mark Reumel from Personal Freedom Therapies, and he's here to help us, and me included, but he's here to help us think about how we can improve our relationships. And I'm particularly interested in Mark's ideas and his work in helping people to communicate and evolve their relationships, whether you're in a relationship right now or whether you've come out of a relationship and are looking for new love. And I know my clients, Mark, are often older women, so it's not always the easiest thing to do. And we'd love to have some of your ideas, your tips, and some do's and don'ts. Perhaps we're making mistakes. And just generally find out what you can offer us. So Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself then. So what's your background, and where did you come into your personal freedom therapies? From what approach?
Yeah, thank you for the introduction, Victoria. To briefly kind of summarize my situation, I worked in the corporate world for a number of years, and it paid me a good living, etc., etc. But I got to a point where I didn't feel I was being true to myself, and I wanted to do something that really interested me, gave me great satisfaction, and I felt was making the most of what I have to offer.
Well, that's very interesting, because that's exactly where a lot of our ladies who are watching today will be at. It's a kind of turning point when things have changed or are changing. And it's where do we go from here? Quite often it is a case of trying to, as an older woman, trying to get control again, because we've been the matriarch or the professional person. And we feel quite often that we're losing that. And it's one way of doing it is to start again, whether it's a relationship or a business or a new employment. But as we get older, obviously our employment status and our needs and desires to choose our own hours, etc., is more important.
Though my business is set up primarily for counselling, psychotherapy, that sort of thing, something I noticed a number of years ago, if any of your people viewing this know of the Channel 4 programme First Dates, where there are people introduced to each other, and in the terrifying setting I would have thought of being filmed and watched, but it comes across very naturally in lots of ways. And what struck me were there were people looking for love, looking for new relationships potentially, and sometimes it worked well, other times not so well. And my naturally analytical mind was fascinated by the interaction and how some got it right and some got it wrong. And I thought, this is the trouble, in that there are lots of opportunities, particularly these days, for all sorts of means of being introduced to someone, particularly online stuff, but no one actually gets trained in what to say, how to say it, how to look, how to be at your best, etc., etc. So you typically goes in, does their best and hopes for the best, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And it just struck me that if there was a little bit of guidance, a little bit of awareness of the psychology going on between the two, and what to say, what not to say, how to look, what would be appropriate, what would be inappropriate. There's a fascinating study just watching that program about people making fundamental mistakes and irritating the other one, and it just doesn't work. And so it was a 2-hour workshop set up, and I'll run it again online. Actually, I think COVID has interrupted things, but it's to help people understand how to be their best by having an understanding of, for example, how to keep a conversation going, what to say, how to say it, what types of question to ask, things like showing an interest in the other person rather than have a shopping list type agenda. Unless this person, male or female, ticks all these boxes, I'm not interested. Better to approach it with an open mind, and to really listen and actually find that not on the face of it my kind of person, but now I'm talking to them and enjoying their company, actually I'm finding them quite attractive. And that happens for men with women and women with men, and well, and the same gender relationships too, for that matter.
So I think what you're saying there is it's not always an instant attraction. And also what I'm thinking of is that a lot of women coming out of divorce or bereavement who want to start again, who are feeling less than secure and perhaps intimidated by the whole online thing, often are quite misled by returning back to their youth and doing what they did before, and flirting or expecting someone to be the knight in shining armor, or are very, very suspicious and cautious and overly so. Do you have any advice that you could offer from your work so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of, particularly for a lady, personal safety is important. I think ladies naturally more intuitive than men, therefore they've probably got a good gut feel for the person they're dealing with. And I would say, I'm sure it kind of goes without saying, but if you are to meet someone face to face, ensure that you're comfortable, you're going to be in a safe place, a safe environment, a public space, etc. And maybe have someone on the end of the phone if you need them to help you out if it does get out of control. That's an extreme situation. But I think in terms of thinking about what someone might be going through, so a lady, for example, who maybe through the breakup of a relationship or something, the confidence has been knocked quite badly, and self-esteem is not where it once was, and every day we all get a day older, etc. So that's another pressure on us. I think it's making sure that you're able to see yourself as others would see you. And why I say that, Victoria, is I think ladies in particular are inclined to look in the mirror and immediately are drawn to what they see as, oh, that's another wrinkle, or that's another line, or I don't look as good as I did, and maybe this is wrong and that's wrong, and maybe I need a new hairstyle, and they become overly critical. I think a lot of the work I do with people is lifting their self-confidence to understand, rather than what they could pick at in terms of I'm not this and I'm not that, actually to value what they've got and maybe enhance what they've got. And when I say that, I need to be careful with that term these days, enhance, but what I'm meaning by that is making the best of themselves. And perhaps it's trying clothing or makeup styles or hair that they haven't done before, and that's twofold. That can make them look more attractive, but most importantly, if they feel comfortable and confident and like what they see in the mirror, they're halfway there. But I'll stress they're only halfway there, because the aesthetic is important. It's important for men, it's important for women, and that's true. But it's not the whole thing. It's not the whole attraction. And what I'm trying to say there is that I've done this personally. I've seen women walk into a room who are head-turningly attractive. However, once you get to speak to them, perhaps it just doesn't live up to what you'd hoped. Equally, I've seen women walk into a room who are not head-turningly attractive, but you get to speak to them and actually they can be really, really attractive and great fun. And what I would say is something I'm a great believer in, is the most attractive thing for men and the most attractive thing for women, in my opinion, when you actually boil everything down, is true inner self-confidence. And what I mean by that is not someone who's loud, boisterous, has to be the center of attention and everything else, but someone who's quite happy in their own skin, has the right level of confidence to look people in the eye and smile and laugh and just be themselves, and that creates an element of relaxation in the person, which shows confidence. They're not trying to be something they can't live up to. They're not trying to portray this image of something that they're not. They're just happy about who they are, and that becomes very attractive to both genders, particularly as we get older. And I'm a guy of 58, so what I look for when I was a guy of 22 is probably different to what I do at 58. But I still think there's that element of self-confidence, self-belief, nothing cocky, nothing flashy, but just, you know, a reliable, good person who believes in themselves. That's massively attractive to both genders.
Yeah, I do think that's very important, Mark, because one of the things that crossed my mind when you're talking about image and feeling good about yourself, etc., a lot of modern women are very hot on authentic self. They want someone who's real. Yes. They want someone who really cares. It's that kind of real reality. Yes, they want the romance, but the idea of being authentic, and that's what you're saying, really, isn't it? That the confidence comes from being yourself and not trying to put across too goody two-shoes or a very sexy lady when you're not.
Absolutely, and you're right. If you go too far away from the real you, then you can't live up to that long term, and then the other person starts to realize, hang on, something's inauthentic here, therefore I'm not feeling it anymore. And sometimes it's not even the processing of what we're talking about, it's just their gut feel is suddenly something's not right here, and that becomes unattractive. So I'd absolutely agree, and it's interesting, isn't it? And particularly for ladies, it's a bit of a minefield in that, how do I look attractive? How do I look sexy when I'm, you know, my age starts with a 6 or even a 7, perhaps? You know, well, you can, and it's there. It's a state of mind, and that goes back to things like psychotherapy and confidence building and understanding. But also it's you know, particularly in this day and age, there's plenty of opportunities to employ image consultants if you needed to go to that. Even in shops, people will help you think of ideas, etc. It's having really the confidence to make them of yourself. So I'm always a bit concerned when I say this, is I'd be the first to say, be yourself, be authentic. But then on the other hand, I'm saying, be the best of yourself. So what I mean by that is, don't hold back because a friend once said, oh, you can't wear that, you're too old for that. I had a situation with a lady who's mid-60s, and although she doesn't look her age, she put a skirt on once that was above the knee. It certainly wasn't a mini skirt, but it was above the knee, and she was blessed with shapely legs, but her so-called friend said, oh no, you can't wear that, that's not what a woman of your age wears. And thankfully she had the confidence to wear it, but it doubted her. And I think, you know, if you feel, yeah, that's what I want to wear, then that's great. The only downside is if that lady were to wear a mini skirt and maybe a very low cut top, etc., then she's giving out a signal to any interested males that she might be a relatively, what's the correct term to use here, easy lady to entertain, shall we say that? That might be a tactful way to put it. And perhaps that's not what's needed. And I remember seeing on First Dates, actually, there was a lady on there who, well, putting it bluntly, was dressed like a porn star. So certainly would get a lot of male attention, but she wasn't getting sincere guys, solid guys, dependable, authentic guys. She was getting plenty of male attention, but not for who she was, but for what she looked like and what that in turn suggested. And I felt very sorry for her in some ways, because she said at the end of it, the first date's interview, it's such a shame, because just like it always is, there are so many men that are interested in me, but they're only after one thing. And I thought, but perhaps you can play your part here in toning it down. She was an attractive lady, but there was it was way too suggestive. And you know, I'm a red-blooded male, and I could see why guys are interested, but it's the sort of lady that you'd think, probably great fun, but I couldn't take her to an event. I couldn't take her to I couldn't even introduce her to my my mother or anything, you know, just. But hey, that's where it goes too far. That's where it goes too far. And yeah, it's getting that balance right. It's getting that.
Do you have any real tips then, strong tips, say three best things a lady should do when she's going out and meeting someone for the first time that perhaps she's been talking to online?
Yeah, I would say make the best of yourself. Make sure you're looking as good as you can, but make sure it's in a way that makes you feel good and feel confident. And also take time to listen to the other person, show great interest, because men and women both like that. If you're interested in each other, and asking, for example, open-ended questions about, you know, what sort of holidays do you enjoy, rather than have you been to Spain? So one's an open question, which could lead anywhere. The other one is a straightforward yes or no answer. So that's good to use. And obviously listen, we've got two of these and one of those, and if we use them in those proportions, and if the conversation dries up, go back to the open-ended questions, the who, what, why, where, when, how, which type questions, which can lead on to other things. And if they mention something early on, you don't always have to jump on that then. But for example, you might say, oh, you said you'd had to take your dog to the vets today. What sort of a dog have you got? And maybe that leads off in another conversation. So try and find things that will interest the other person, etc. Whether it interests you or not at this stage doesn't matter, because what you're trying to do is build connections to common themes and stuff you have in common. And as you often hear when dating is successful, yeah, we have a lot in common. I think we could get on well. You don't have to all like the same things, but if there's a degree of commonality, that can work well. So I would say look for those opportunities. Be polite, be on time as best you can, and try, and it's so hard to relax, but a lot of the people I deal with, helping them with dating tips and so on, that's a big part of it. If you get the confidence level right, the relaxation is a natural byproduct of that, and then the whole thing flows. And yeah, that can work. So hopefully, I mean, there's a whole load of things I could talk about, but in the time we've got now, there would be a couple of tips I would offer. Yeah.
Lovely. I think for myself, I tend to think, well, I'm going to make a new friend, because I've known other people that have fallen in love with someone's brother after dating someone 2 or 3 times,
Right.
met someone through them.
Yeah.
You know, and that's
absolutely.
perhaps a little bit more relaxing, that you're not thinking this has to be the one, but he may have a friend or a brother,
Absolutely.
or in my case, a granddad.
and the same for men. And I think, you know, for the ladies listening, possibly there's an assumption that men are only after one thing and they're unreliable and they're all hopeless. And yeah, probably a lot of us are, if I'm honest. But there are good guys. There are guys that too have had their confidence shattered. Yeah. They are suffering a bit in terms of self-esteem, unsure what to say, how to say it, where to go. So, you know, don't always assume that the guy has got everything under control and you're the nervous one. It's probably the other way around in a lot of cases.
And also, sorry, yeah, some people come out of bereavement, you know, and after some years they may start thinking that they would like a partner. They don't want to spend the rest of their lives on their own. So one of the things I've found is that they often have an idealistic view of what that partner should be, and that can be a failing, kind of, if you're always asking someone to live up to the image you have of someone else.
Absolutely.
It's not going to work, is it? So you have
no,
to
that's a great point you make, actually, Victoria. It's because sometimes, or in a lot of cases, relationships end when no one wants them to end, and sadly bereavement occurs, etc. And that process in itself is something I deal with a lot, and that can be a lengthy process. But when it comes to, as you rightly put it, feeling right, I want to get back on the dating scene, maybe that person hasn't dated for 30-40 years, so that feels a scary minefield to suddenly be getting into. I can't act like a teenager when I met my husband, who now has suddenly gone. So how do I act in my 60s or whatever the age is? What do I do? I don't know where to start. In fact, I won't bother. I'll stay at home and watch some TV because I feel safe with that. And they deny themselves the opportunity to step out and enjoy what life has to offer in whatever form that comes. But I think, as you quite rightly say, perhaps they're looking for all that their lovely husband or long-term partner gave them, and ideally more, when in actual fact that's arguably an unrealistic viewpoint to have. And I think having an open mind and maybe enjoying a bit of male company just to see where things go. You don't have to dive headlong into a relationship. And as you rightly said, it might not be the one, but it might open up to, you know, a social scene that you wouldn't have otherwise come across. And within that social group or some sort of spin-off, then maybe the more suitable candidate is amongst those. So I think to have an open mind, try to avoid the shopping list of he must be this, and this, because you narrow down your field so much so quickly, and approach it with an open mind. There's a lot more to it than that, but in the context we're talking now, that's probably a good way to sum it up.
That's excellent. Thank you. That's really good advice. And it's obvious that you're very experienced in your psychology and therapies, and that you have an understanding of women to some extent. So that's very confidence building in your clients, I would imagine. So we look forward to some more events then. So I hope you'll let me know when your events are organised. I think you're in the process of organising one at the moment.
Yes, that's due in the next month or so. So I'll certainly let you know the date, so that anyone that's interested and feels they might benefit from it. It will be free. It will be online. You haven't got to dress up or leave home for it. It's relatively relaxed and easy to do. And certainly anyone who's struggling in any way in life, anything that my psychotherapeutic counselling can help with, be pleased to help people. And you often find the basis for this is their confidence has been knocked, so that in turn creates an outlook of pessimism. And just by taking time out to understand what's going on for each person, we can help to get people thinking differently. And as I would call it, rather than spiraling downwards, they start to spiral upwards and be the best they can be. And hey, that's what we all want to be. And I think in particular, ladies suffer in this sense, in that, you know, there's the dreaded M word, menopause kicks in, and all that's happening. They start to feel they're becoming invisible. You know, there are, you know, oh, there are younger, prettier women around than me. Well, actually, those younger, prettier women don't have the life experience, don't have the natural self-confidence, don't have the tales to tell and the humor that suits a lot of men. So yeah, women are attractive at every age, definitely, but they don't always feel it, and maybe they just need a reminder and an understanding and some good advice how to have that feeling and be that person. And that fascinates me, and the satisfaction I get is seeing people go from a relatively low point to a good high point where life becomes really interesting, fun, and life for living. Yeah.
It's just taking that first step. I think if any of you ladies are interested in joining Mark on his workshop when he's got it, the dates sorted, go and have a look on his website at personalfreedomtherapies.co.uk and connect with Mark, and you can connect to him through me if you can't remember that or don't come back to the recording. I will put it in the comments below, but I think what I've got from this, Mark, is that women just need to take the first step, and to go cold out there on that first step or onto the online dating, etc., is what they're doing. But maybe it's best to have something like someone or some access to your workshops where they have some clue and start to build that confidence. So you say you spiral up slowly, and not to expect too much of themselves. So ourselves, ladies, we don't expect to find Prince Charming straight away, but there are lots of lovely, enriching experiences. And didn't I say Mark was wonderful and empowering? Going back to my introduction.
I'll let the other ladies be the judge of that. But certainly, you know, I've talked about the workshop, but if anyone wants to do any one-to-one work on making the best of themselves, and certainly preparing themselves for back on the dating scene, that's something I've got experience in helping people with. And it often boils down to self-confidence, but that has many aspects to it. And in a workshop style environment, I'm generalizing greatly, a bit like I am this morning, but the beauty of working one-to-one is then we deal with the specifics for that individual. So that's when it really becomes powerful and helpful, and strengthens it, so that when that person goes back on the dating scene, they will still be nervous, and nerves can be exciting and a good thing, but the nerves are under control, and they have an understanding of what to do, what not to do, how to do it, and how to be the best and give the best first impression. One thing I should say, Victoria, is the website is www.personalfreedomtherapies.co.uk.
As a footnote, I would like to say, if you are already in a relationship and it's reaching difficulties, then again, Mark can help you with that, in understanding how you can approach things differently. I think sometimes when we retire, or I was talking to somebody recently whose husband's just retired, and it's kind of like, oh, he's retired. And there's a level of adjustment that needs to be made. And
that's a very good point. I deal with that for people too. A lot of the same stuff happens because you see your partner on a different level again. So yes, do get in touch with Mark if you've got any ideas that you'd like to run past him. And I'll put all the information down below, and Mark will keep us in touch with dates, etc. But do connect with Mark at Personal Freedom Therapies, and I hope he makes you laugh as well, because he's made me laugh today before we came on air, and I'm sure we'll just sort of have a little laugh now because he thinks I'm hilarious. My life. How true that is. How true that is.
Okay, because I think you're going to really enjoy working with Mark if it's really pushed your buttons today and how you're going to move forward. So thank you again, Mark. Wonderful to speak to you. Really, really.
My pleasure, Victoria. Thank you for the opportunity, and be pleased to help anyone, of course.
Okay, then. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.